Hello everybody, good morning to one and all. So today I am Kranth and I will be teaching you something about fundamentals of computers. When I say about fundamentals of computers, yes, we were been learning about so many things from previous days, but today we are going to learn something special on fundamentals of computers. When I say fundamentals of computers, the most important thing that you have to remember is what am I going to teach you today related to the computers. Yes, today I am going to teach you something called as operating systems. Yes, when I speak about the operating systems, let us revise once again what we been learning previous days. Yes, yesterday I have said you about the hardware and the software. So when I am telling about the softwares, I also have mentioned system software and another software. So what is that another software? Yes, I was talking about operating systems. When I speak about operating systems, the most important thing that you have to remember is what job will the operating system do. Okay, so let us see the slide once again. If you can see here, we have introduction to computers. In introduction to computers, the most important thing that you have to remember is operating systems. When I speak about the operating systems, just remember the brief of the operating systems. So let us see the slide once again. So here we have operating system. An operating system or OS is a software on the hard drive that enables the computer hardware to communicate and operate with the computer software. Without a computer operating system, a computer and software programs would be useless. The picture to the right is an example of Microsoft Windows XP, a popular operating system, and what is the box may look like if you were to purchase it from a local retail store. So when I say this, what is I want to mention here? So when I speak about the operating system, always remember that the operating system or OS is a software on the hard drive. That is, it is basically installed in the hard drive that enables the computer hardware to communicate and operate with the computer. For example, once you download that operating system or once you install the operating system in your computer, the operating system will make sure that it really uses your computer in the right way and it gives you all the information that is required whenever you put the input into your system. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember, especially when I say operating system. So let me tell you what are the main things or what is an example of an operating system. XP. Once I say the operating system, XP is one of the best operating systems that you have to remember. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember. Yes, if you can see XP 2000, when we were in the school level, we were there to see the 2000 XP. Once we install that, we have a green command box down of the Windows, where if you hit the Windows button, the tab opens and we can see all the things again over there. So this is all about the operating system and the definition of it. So never ever forget what is an operating system. For you, I will read it once again. An operating system or OS is a software on the hard drive that enables the computer hardware to communicate and operate with the computer software. This is the definition of the operating system. Please make sure that you just note this point so that in future, if there is a chance where you can speak about an operating system, you can actually talk about it. So this is what I just want to tell you about the operating system. Yes. Now let me tell you some interesting thing about the operating system. We were been looking at operating systems. We were been operating the operating systems from so many days. But have you ever done a research on operating systems? No, we never got that type of chance, or we never were in the position to operate or to look at the details of the operating systems, or we never have gone deep into looking at the operating systems. So today we are going to go little deep into operating system and learn about the operating systems. Okay. So now let us go with the next slide, that is in detail of the operating system. Again, that comes under introduction to computers. Always remember, all these what we were talking about the operating systems are related to introduction to computer. When I speak about the introduction to computer, Any operating system performs some basic tasks like recognizing the input data from a keyboard, sending output to the display screen, keeping files and directories of the disk, and controlling the peripheral devices like printers. An operating system can perform a single task or operation as well as multiple tasks or operations at any time. So, when I say this, what I meant actually, so that is what I will tell you once again. Always remember, any operating system performs some basic tasks like recognizing the input data from a keyboard. For example, whatever input I am giving to the system or a computer to have a function or to have a binary coding or anything. See, I will tell you one thing, always remember people, we have to give an input device or we have to put an input to the computer so that the computer takes our input, calculates and changes that into the binary language and again changes that into the language what we need and then communicates back to us. So, this all functions are happening through the OS obviously, because the operating system plays a very major role in understanding what the input is given to the system, because if operating system is not there, we can see nothing in our computer, because operating system is something which displays and which customizes the things what we are using in the computer. So, always remember that operating system is mainly used to take the input, manipulates the thing what we have insisted to the computer to do, and then it functions. I mean, that gives the command back to the hard disk or the internal components of the computer, then it tries to calculate into the binary language and change that binary language, that is matrix, the change matrix into the basic language, and then they revert back with the device or with help of again operating system that gives us an output. So, output is the most important thing that we get satisfied with, because if you do not get an output from the computer, obviously you people will feel bad about it, isn't it? So, without discouraging you or without disappointing you, a computer will always play a major role in giving you the output whatever you require. So, this is all being done by operating system. So, always remember that. So, when I take you with the next slide, now these are the most important things that you have to remember when I speak about what kind of operating systems are there. Simple batch system, multi-programming batch system, multi-processor system, disturbed operating system, real-time operating system. So, these are the most important things we were talking about in deep of the operating systems. When I say we are learning about in deep of the introduction to computers of the operating system, we have we have 5 important points that you have to remember. I will revise once again. If you can see the slide, we have simple batch system, multi-programming batch system, multi-processor system, disturbed operating system, real-time operating system. So, these 5 points are the most important things that you have to remember, especially when I talk about operating systems in introduction to computers. So, before I go deep and explain you about all these operating systems, let me give you some more details and debrief of the operating system. As I have said you, I have introduced to the operating system, and when I have introduced you to the operating system, I was telling you what exactly the brief of the operating system mean. The brief of operating system simply mean how exactly you are giving the input and how exactly the computer is displaying the output for you at the end. So, in between all the process, I mean the entire function happens through the internal process of the computer. So, always remember that, yes, if operating system is one of the most important things, in deep you have so many things that process the program and calculates the matrix and give you the output. Because it is a machine, it have lot of programmings into it. So my personal suggestion for you is never ever forget on what you are learning, right? Because yes, we were been learning about so many system softwares yesterday, but today when we go into the operating systems, those are very important things that you have to remember, because when you go for a software job or when you go for any related software jobs, the first thing that you have to remember is every time you have something called as important questions, and in those important questions you will find one of the most important thing, that is operating systems. When I speak about the operating systems, yes, how many types of operating systems are there, what is the last operating system found in the market, or what is the upgraded version of the operating system, or what is the most used operating system, or what are the functions of operating systems, and etc. and etc. So we have so many things that you have to learn in the operating systems. When I say all this, never ever forget what I am actually teaching you. So now let me take you with the first introduction to computer of operating system. Here we have single batch operating system. In this type of system, there is no direct interaction between user and the computer. The user has to submit a job written on cards or tape to a computer operator. Then computer operator places a batch of several jobs on an input device. Jobs are batched together by type of languages and requirement. So what is this? The first point I was telling you is, in this type of system there is no direct information between user and the computer. So when I say this point, I just want you to remember that here there is never a relation between the system and the computer. There is never a connection between the user and the computer. So the only thing that you have to remember here is, in this first point of the single batch operating system never have the relation between the user and the computer. Always remember that. And when I say the second point, the user has to submit a job. For example, if I submit or if I give an input to submit, I am submitting a small function to the computer where, you can simply say it is given through the VCR or CD or card or tape. Then the computer operator will be able to take that, function that and review it and then give the output on the monitor. So this is what you just have to remember in the second point. When I speak about the third point, then computer operator places a batch of several jobs on an input device. Yes, the computer operator places a batch of several jobs on an input device. For example, once you have given something to the input of the computer, it calculates few of the functions that you want to display it on your monitor, or you are waiting for the response, or you are waiting for a data. Then what basically the single batch operation system will do is, it operates different places a batch of, and it goes to a place where we have several jobs on an input device. It takes from the input device, calculates so many things at one particular time and displays that as an output result. So in that result you can find so many answers instead of one answer. That is what indirectly or directly it meant. This is what you have to remember in the third point of the single batch operating system. And the last one that you have to remember here is, jobs are batched together by type of languages and requirement. So when I say how are you getting the output in single batch operating systems, when I say single batch operating system, in the single batch operating system the final output is actually batched together. Alright. So this is the main word that you have to remember when I ask about single batch operating system. When I say about, when I ask you a question, speak about single batch operating system, the first thing you should be able to say is, this single batch operating systems are batched together by type of languages or requirements, because whenever I speak about the single batch operating system, these function in a set of things. Set in the sense it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 4, it can be multiple. So, this is what you just have to remember when I speak about the single batch operating system. This is the most important thing that you have to find when I speak about the single batch operating system. And what is the deep? Let us go deep into single batch operating system. Yes, if you can see the slide, single batch operating system, then a special program, the monitor manages the execution of each program in the batch. The monitor is always in the main memory and available for execution. Following are some disadvantages of this type of system. So, the above two are the continuation of the last points we were been talking. When I speak about the another point of the single batch operating system, it is a continuation after the batch is loaded with the requirements or a language, then a special program, the monitor manages the execution of each program in the batch. When I am talking about the set of programs, we have a special program in the monitor which manages the execution of each program in the batch. And the last, the monitor is always in the main memory and available for execution. That is when we get the output on the monitor. So, this is the most important thing that you have to remember in the points of single batch operating system. So, now let me show you the disadvantages of the single batch operating system. When I speak about the single batch operating system disadvantages, we have zero interaction between user and computer, no mechanism to prioritize process. So, what does these 2 points mean here? So, when I speak about the first point, that is in the disadvantages of single batch operating system, you have no interaction with the computer. Obviously, when you are using the single batch operating system, you just have to give a command, that is all, and the rest of the entire details will be given back by the monitor, that means by the computer again. So, but when I say this, there is no interaction. If you want to rechange or if you want to re-interrupt the computer, you can't do it, because once the function is given, at the end you will get the output and you just have to wait for the output, and then you can again rechange or you can re-give the function. So, this is what you just have to remember. Waiting for all the way long and getting one command is rather than you can interrupting. So, this is a basic operating system that we can found in the operating systems. And the second disadvantage of this batch or the single batch operating system is no mechanism to prioritize process. When I say this, always there is no mechanism, like no mechanism to rechange or to update this particular programs, or this particular OS can't be really updated. I mean, you can't really repair this. So, once you install it, you have to use it until and unless you reinstall or you put another OS into your computer. So, always remember this, these are the 2 disadvantages of the single batch operating systems. So, yes, how does this single batch operating system have or work? Let us have a workflow chart. Let us see the slide once again. If you can see the slide, transaction file, master file, merge process, updated master file. So, this is the flow chart that we were been looking at in the single batch operating system. So, when I speak about the single batch operating system flow chart, we have transaction file and master file getting commands into the merge process, and then updated master file will be given as the output in the computer. So, this is the flow chart that you have to remember, especially when I talk about the single batch operating system. All right. So, this is the most important thing that you have to remember when I talk about single batch operating system. So, yes, I think everybody had a clear idea of what is single batch system, operating system. So now let us see the slide once again. We have introduction to computers, an introduction to computers of operating systems. We have the first one as simple batch system, and then the second one as multi-programming batch system. So yes, the first one we were talking about was single batch system operating system. When I speak about single batch operating system, always remember that we had set of commands that usually collide with each other, give an output at the end for the computer, where we can't interrupt, or the user will never have a direct interaction with the computer. So you just have to remember that. But let us go for the next one, that is multi-programming batch system, or you can say multi-programming batch system, or you can say multi-programming batch operating system. So these are the most important things that you have to remember, especially when I talk about multi-programming. Just say MBS. Yes, MBS is nothing but multi-programming batch system operating software. So now let us see the slide. Let us read about multi-programming batch system. In this, the operating system picks and begins to execute one job from memory. Once this job needs an I/O operation, operating system switches to another job. CPU and OS always busy. Jobs in the memory are always less than the number of jobs on disk. Job pool. If several jobs are ready to run at the same time, then system chooses which one to run. We can say CPU scheduling. In non-multi-programmed system, there are moments when CPU sits idle and does not do any work. In multi-programming system, CPU will never be idle and keeps on processing. So here when I speak about multi-programming batch systems, the only thing that you have to remember is here at this particular situation, or when we talk about the multi-programming batch systems, always remember in this programming operating system, the CPU always get engaged with some on other work, because usually in other operating systems, I mean if you see the another operation or operating systems, the main problem with the another operating systems is the CPU sometimes go idle. Yes, of course, because when the CPU goes idle, obviously you won't get the proper function output on the monitor. But when the CPU keeps working and keeps getting engaged with several works, what happens at the end of the function or at the end of the matrix, you can get the result what you exactly are looking for on the computer. And this is what you just have to remember when I speak about the multi-programming batch system. So let me go through the point wise what we have written, what we have shown, and what we want. So the first point that I have mentioned in the multi-programming batch system is, in this the operating system picks and begins to execute one job from memory. So what does this mean? In this, the operating system tries to begin to execute one job, that is just one particular thing. Yes, in the previous thing we were talking about the sets, but here one job from the memory. It takes one proper function and tries to execute from the beginning of the operating system. The second point here is, once this job needs an I/O operating system, the operating system switches to another job. That means once the job needs, I mean once whatever job that the multi-programming batch system is doing, first it will execute one job. After taking the one job, it gives that command to the I/O operating system and then switches to another job. That is what it's called. That is why it is actually called as multi-programming. Multi, it does several things at one particular time. So, you can say it is defined to be multi-programming, because once the program is taken, once the job is taken, it passes to I/O operating system and then goes for the next one order wise. Now, let us see the third point. Jobs in the memory are always less than the number of jobs on disk, that is job pool. So, when I speak about here, I was talking about jobs in the memory are always less than the number of jobs on disk. For example, if you can see the operating system, the related jobs of the operating systems are comparatively lesser than the jobs on the disk, because when you put more pressure on the operating system, when the operating system have more work to do, then obviously operating system will get struck, will be mum at one particular moment. That is when you get irritated saying that my system is slow, isn't it? So, this won't happen with the multi-programming batch system software. Always remember that. Now, let us go with the next point, that is, if several jobs are ready to run at the same time, then system chooses which one to run, because it is CPU scheduling. So, when I speak about this, always remember that if several jobs are ready to run in the same time, then system chooses which one to run. For example, at a particular point there are so many commands and so many jobs that are being given to the CPU. So, what CPU does is what execution that it have to do at one particular time. For example, if it have to display this program, yes, this program will be displayed by the CPU. That is what the CPU scheduling will do. And when it comes to the multi-programming operating system, which operating system will make CPU to choose one job which have to be done in that particular situation. So, now let us go with the next point in the multi-programming batch system. In non-multi-programmed system, there are moments when CPU sits idle and does not do any work. That is what I was talking about at the initial stage of multi-programming batch system. Yes, there are particular operating system apart from here. If you can see, there are times where literally the CPU is idle. I mean, you can see CPU doing no work. What? When CPU does not do any work, obviously we will have the wrong commands passing, or we have the output coming very slow. This is what you just have to remember. The CPU have to get engaged all the time, so that we get a proper fast quick output whenever we are looking out for something on the computer. So, now let us go with the last but one point. If you can see, in multi-programming system, CPU will never be idle and keeps on processing. Yes, that is what the answer we were just been looking about in the multi-programming. So, always remember, I mentioned the answer in the last point of the PPTs. So, here in the slide I have given the answer for multi-programming batch system softwares, and what is that? In multi-programming system, CPU will never be idle and keep on processing. So, this is what you just have to remember when I speak about multi-programming batch systems, because in especially multi-programming batch systems, the CPU never ever be idle, because it keeps on giving jobs to the CPU. Alright. So, now let us see a small flow chart of the multi-programming batch system. If you can see here, we have secondary disk storage, and then we have execution in progress, where writing OP data, and in main memory you have operating systems, job A, job B, job C, and then we have waiting for CPU, and then we have CPU. So, here is the execution in progress. So, if you can see job B and CPU, that is what the secondary disk storage, writing OP data will be done by the job A, and this is all at the main memory. So, can you see here the entire work is being getting engaged here. So, when I say about multi-programming batch systems, here in the flow chart you can only see that every time this flow chart is giving you a basic example that the CPU will be engaged all the time, because there is the secondary disk storage which where we get the data to the main memory, and once you have the main memory on the progress, you have the operating system which again job allocating to job, you can see job A, job B and job C, where in the job C we have waiting for CPU or writing for CPU, and then we have CPU. So, now when I say job A is again engaged with the secondary disk storage and the job B is internally connected with the CPU, it always gives the commands to the CPU, so that the CPU will be working every time you see in the programming of the computer. So, these are the most important two operating systems that you have to remember, because whenever we speak about the operating systems, always we have the amazing characteristics of each particular operating systems. So, each particular systems have their own work commands and their own way of functioning in the computer. So, this is what you have to remember when it comes to the 2 points. Those are the 2 important things of the operating systems. If you can see, the first one is single batch operating system. If you can see here, yes, we have single batch operating system, and then we have multi-programming batch system. And now we have another 3 to learn. First one is multi-processor system. When I speak about the multi-processor system, what is that you just have to remember? In the multi-processor system, always remember only one thing. When I am speaking about multi-programming, we have so many programs, those are, you have so many jobs that are being given to the system, but when I speak about the multi-sharing or time sharing operating system, here we can go with the slide once again. Yes, time sharing is a technique which enables many people located at various terminals to use a particular computer system at the same time. Time sharing or multitasking is a logic or a logical extension of the multi-programming. Processor's time, which is shared among multiple users simultaneously, is termed as time sharing. The main difference between multi-programmed batch systems and time sharing systems is that in case of multi-programmed batch systems, the objective is to maximize processor use, whereas in time sharing systems the objective is to minimize response time. So, yes, here in the time sharing operating system, we were just before we go with the multi-programming, let us speak about the time sharing and what is the most important thing in the time sharing operating system. Here in the time sharing, it's a basic technique which enables many people located at various terminals to use a particular computer system at the same time. For example, here if you can see, it is a small technique where people here are basically using the same particular computer system at the same time, which is basically only through the time sharing operating system, because here there is a small technique which activates so many people to use, or so many, the simple thing is this operating system will know where exactly the other person is using the same operating system and tries to collaborate all of the people at one particular place and then activates that. So, indirectly or directly, this operating system is playing a major role in gathering people who uses the same operating system at one particular place. This is what you just have to remember in the time sharing operating system. Yes. Let us go with the third point. processor time which is shared among multiple users simultaneously is termed as time sharing. Now, when I speak about the time sharing operating system, we do have these things where the processor's time which is shared. When I am speaking about the sharing, obviously what is sharing? The sharing here is the processor's time. Yes, the processor's times is basically being shared among multiple users simultaneously, termed while time sharing, which is actually being used by the processor, and processor plays a very major role in understanding and giving back the responses on what exactly the multi tasked people are looking out for, because this is a logical extension, right. So, now let us go with the next point. We have the main difference between multi-programmed batch systems and time sharing systems is that in case of multi-programmed batch systems, the objective is to maximize processor use, whereas in time sharing systems the objective is to minimize response time. So, when I speak about the last point, the biggest difference between multi-programmed batch systems and time sharing systems is that in case of multi-programmed batch systems, the objective is to maximize processor use. That is, indirectly or directly in the batch system, I mean in the multi-programmed batch system operating system, we have the operation of the processor multi-used. I mean, the processor is highly used over there, where there is a chance of the processor getting heated. So, this is dangerous, isn't it? But when I speak about the time sharing system, is to minimize the response time, that is, the processor time or the processor use is less being utilized, which actually helps your computer, or which actually helps the operating system to be used more by the people. And this is what you just have to remember when I speak about the time sharing operating systems. So, yes, we were been learning about the operating system where we newly have come up with this time sharing operating systems, and what are the examples of this, or what are the flow chart I will just give you. Let us see with the flow chart here. We have CPU, we have user 1, user 2, user 3, and we have user 4, and do we have user 5. But here, when user 5 is actually being engaged, where user 6 is an active link, the CPU tries re-giving the functions to user 1, user 2, user 3 and user 4 again and again, so that when the CPU of the user 5 is being actually used, there is the time collapsion of the processor, where it will have some time to re-execute on what exactly the operating system is being functioned with. So, this is the most important thing that you have to remember when I speak about the time sharing operating system and its flow chart. So, now let us have a basic talk on what we were being introduced to the fundamentals of computers today. So, when I have shown you the introduction to computers as the different kinds of operating systems, the first thing that we were been learning today is simple batch system, and then we have multi-programming batch system, and then we have multi-processor system, and then we have distributed operating system, and then we have real time operating system. So, yes, the third one that we were been talking about was multiprocessor system, which we were talking about the time and its importance. Time operating system, isn't it, where the operation in especially the time processing operating systems, we have the less burden on the processor, where it indirectly or directly will help your computer to perform more advanced because of less usage. So, this is what is the most important thing that you have to remember. So, now let me take you with the basic operating systems that we were been going through all these days. When I speak about these things, that is, multiprocessor system, here if you can see, we have a multiprocessor system which consists of several processors that share a common physical memory. Multiprocessor system provides higher computing power and speed. In multiprocessor system, all processors operate under single operating system. Multiplicity of the processors are how they do act together are transparent to the others. And now, when I speak about multiprocessor, there are more than one processors, obviously, right. So, when I speak about that, always remember that a multiprocessor system consists of several processors that share a common physical memory. That means, at one particular time a memory is being shared or used by different processors. Multiprocessor systems provides higher computing power and speed. When you have more than one processor, always remember guys, obviously your speed and the power of the computer will increase, because there are two processors in that particular in the computer. So, when there are more than one, obviously the work gets easier and the work gets speeden up, isn't it. So, now let us see the continuation of the slide. We have in multiprocessor system, all processors operate under single operating system. For example, if you can see, each processor will have one operating system, but in multiprocessor systems, one operating system will deal with all the processors where you have in the computer or in the machine, because this is the most advanced level of understanding the operating system, because an operating system will be able to calculate all the processors and their functions. This is what is all about multiprocessor system. In the heading itself, we can know about what is actually multiprocessor system, multiprocessor system software, right. So, this is what you just have to remember. And now let us see the next point of the multiprocessor system. Following are some advantages of this type of system: enhanced performance, execution of several tasks by different processors, concurrently increases the system's throughput without speeding up the execution of a single task. If possible, system divides task into many subtasks, and then these subtasks can be executed in parallel in different processors, thereby speeding up the execution of single tasks. So, now when I am talking about what is happening here is what we should know in the multiprocessor system operating systems. The first thing that is happening is enhanced performance, that is amazing performance. Yes, obviously everybody wants this, isn't it. So, now let us see with the second point. We have execution of several tasks by different process concurrently increases the systems throughout without the speeding up the execution of a single task. For example, I will say in school we were there where we have the project which is being shared among the team. When the project is being shared among the team, what happens? There is no hurry in the work, isn't it, because each person will be doing each job. When each person is doing each job, the only thing that you have to remember is there is no chance of speeding up that particular job. So, literally the system will be currently doing the output perfectly, because there is no speeding up of the work. At the same time, when each processor is doing one particular job which executes simultaneously at one particular point, it is an advantage, because at the end you will get the perfect output with different outputs, with the different tasks involved in it. So, that is what you have to remember in multiprocessor system software, because in multiprocessor we have so many processors working under one operating system. So, this is the most important thing that you have to remember, especially when I am talking about the multiprocessor system software. So, for today we will be just talking about the 4 important operating systems, that is simple batch system software, multi-programming batch system software, real time operating system software, and time operating software, and then we have multiprocessor system software, and then we have disturbed operating system. So, about the disturbed operating system we will be learning tomorrow. So, today we have been just learning about the operating systems and the deep of the operating systems. So, today we have learned, remember guys, simple batch operating system, multi-programming batch system, time operating batch system, multi-processor batch system. So, that is what we have learned today. So, remember this, because any time when you go for an interview or when you go for a basic computer test or wherever you go, because every time when you go for a software or a hardware job, this is a main question about the operating system, because when you do not know about the operating system, always remember you can never ever talk anything about this. So, always remember operating system is one of the most important things that you have to remember, at least the full form of the operating systems and how many types of operating systems are there, right. So, yes, we will go in deep tomorrow about the same subject. So, today we will finish the class by the operating systems that we have learned today. So, thank you so much for listening to the class, and thank you so much for being patient in listening to this class, and I hope nobody forgets. Thank you so much, and I am Kranth.